In the year of 1983, the United States of America government under the then President Ronald Reagan commissioned the production of a strategic board game named Proud Prophet. This is not a funny historical curiosity, but one of the most terrifying stories to come out of the Cold War. In the same year, there were more than 60,000 nuclear weapons between the United States and the Soviet Union, and the game Proud Prophet, created by Harvard economics PhD Thomas Schelling, aimed to simulate a nuclear war in the context of the Cold War. For 2 weeks, more than 200 people gathered at the National War College in Washington to play Proud Prophet, starting from different scenarios for the beginning of a nuclear war. The scenarios played were never disclosed by the American government. One of the few things we know about the nuclear war simulation comes from the accounts of Paul Bracken, a political science professor at Yale. According to Bracken, it doesn't matter how the game starts, who initiates the war, or in what situation, the end of the game is always the same: full nuclear war.
Hey, Pedro here. This video you are watching was originally in Portuguese, my native language. This is the attempt of our team to translate it to English, and I sincerely hope you enjoy it. Your feedback is extremely important to us. Now, back to the video.
This is one of the possible scenarios. Any nation with a nuclear bomb and an intercontinental ballistic missile is capable of ending the world in 60 minutes. And this is how this scenario begins. Some small country, but with nuclear capability, launches a single nuclear bomb against a nuclear power like the United States or Russia. In our scenario, we will specifically follow the launch of an intercontinental ballistic missile launched near Pyongyang, North Korea. Intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs, are one of the key technologies for the use of nuclear weapons. The ICBM is capable of carrying a nuclear warhead to almost any place in the world with precision in less than 30 minutes. The launch of North Korea's ICBM, the Hwasong-17, begins with a 5-minute burn, followed by a ballistic trajectory over approximately 1,000 kilometers high, and ends by re-entering the atmosphere and hitting its target. It only takes a few seconds for the United States SBIRS satellites to detect the launch of the ICBM. The SBIRS satellites are designed to detect the characteristic fuel burn of an ICBM and represent the first step in the American response protocol to a nuclear threat, such as this. Normally, when nations capable of launching an ICBM conduct tests, they notify other countries to avoid confusion. North Korea is the only exception. In 30 seconds, satellites find the probable trajectory of the ICBM, the east coast of the United States, where the American capital, Washington, is located. A meticulously and carefully rehearsed chain of events begins. The data is received by the Aerospace Data Facility in the state of Colorado. In under 3 minutes, the High Command of the Army is assembled and informed of the possible nuclear attack from North Korea, on its way, and expected to arrive in less than 25 minutes. It is up to the High Command of the Army to interpret this situation and report to the American president, who will make his decision on how to handle the situation. The American plan to deal with the nuclear attack is called the O Plan, and the first part of the plan has just failed. The United States has over 1,000 nuclear weapons ready to be launched at a moment's notice. Russia has similar numbers. Indeed, either of these countries is capable of ending the world in seconds. And this is intentional. It is, in fact, part of the nuclear war strategy called nuclear deterrence. The only reasonable defense against a nuclear attack is to be able to retaliate with your own nuclear weapons. The United States is a continuous and permanent nuclear threat as a way to always encourage other nuclear powers to never attack the United States. Because the US is capable of retaliating and destroying attackers with its nuclear weapons. And this is the theory of nuclear deterrence, preventing a nuclear attack with an even greater threat, a key strategy in modern world politics. And this strategy just failed, as proven by the ICBM launch in North Korea, 5 minutes. The North Korean ICBM has completed its burn phase and is now invisible to satellites. In a few minutes, American ground radars will locate it again. The American president immediately receives a call about the situation. On the other end of the call are the Secretary of Defense, in a bunker beneath the Pentagon, and the Chief of Strategic Command, at a base in Alaska. The Strategic Command, or STRATCOM, is precisely the group responsible for studying how to use nuclear weapons and respond to the use of nuclear weapons. The president is informed of a possible nuclear attack by North Korea, carried out using a single ICBM. This scenario is not only a threat, but a strange one. A single nuclear bomb is not enough to destroy the American retaliatory capability. So, could this be a real attack? Perhaps. Maybe the ICBM doesn't carry a nuclear weapon, and is just a stupid show of force. A single attack, without a prior escalation of tensions, creates a very strange situation. It is impossible to know if the ICBM actually carries a nuclear bomb. And even so, what the president should do, in theory, is determined by the O plan: initiate a devastating nuclear attack against North Korea. This is the launch on warning policy. If the United States detects an ICBM flying towards American soil, the idea is that the United States should retaliate as quickly as possible. And not only that, but they must retaliate with a decapitation strike, which aims to destroy the entire command of the enemy nation all at once. It is up to the president to understand the situation and decide what the best retaliation option will be, ideally in less than 6 minutes. Approximately 30 seconds have passed. To complicate the president's decision, in 1960, the United States detection system reported the moonrise as the launch of 1,000 ICBMs. In 1979, a situation was misinterpreted as a genuine detection of a nuclear attack. An out-of-the-blue attack like this is strange, and there might be more behind the story. Now the president has 6 minutes to decide if the attack is credible enough for a counterattack and what form that counterattack will take. The president discusses his options with his advisors while being escorted to a bunker by his security team. There are 14 minutes left until the ICBM impact. It'll hit Washington, destroying the White House and the Pentagon. Officials responsible for evacuating important figures plan the escape route for the president and a few other people. The president opens the emergency briefcase, a small suitcase used to command a nuclear attack. The briefcase accompanies the president 100% of the time, and the details of how it operates are extremely confidential. Reports indicate that it has a robust communication system and a booklet that has been compared to a fast food menu. The menu currently lists the available nuclear attack options and the human cost of each possible attack. The Chief of Strategic Command suggests the option of a full retaliation against North Korea, which involves tens of millions of deaths and radioactive contamination of the territories of China and Russia, which is far from ideal. Ignoring the advice, the president orders the first nuclear strike to be carried out by bombers carrying nuclear bombs. Airplanes are one of the 3 ways to carry out a nuclear attack. They are a slower option, but they are the only option that can be aborted. If the attack is a false alarm or proves to be an error, it will be possible to reverse it. In the next few minutes, numerous key figures in the American government will be moved from potential attack targets to several bunkers around the United States. In theory, the president goes to the Raven Rock Mountain complex. In practice, the president has 10 minutes to evacuate, and that might not be enough. A powerful nuclear explosion can disable electronic systems over vast distances. And there is a real chance that the helicopter carrying the American president, Marine One, could be affected by the explosion in this way. Even with all of America's technological superiority, a single ICBM from North Korea has a real chance of killing the American president. There is no practical defense against such an attack. ICBMs are terrifying weapons, but they are not the most terrifying weapons involved in nuclear war. That title belongs to nuclear submarines. 24 minutes. A few minutes before the ICBM hits Washington, a second group of launches is detected near the American West Coast. A North Korean submarine carrying 8 nuclear warheads surfaced and fired the warheads at targets off the American West Coast. The travel time for these attacks is just a few minutes. There are now 9 nuclear bombs in the air, and they will all fall at approximately the same time. And it is because of the possibility of launching attacks from such close proximity, with travel times of just a few minutes, that submarines carrying nuclear weapons are so terrifying. Additionally, submarines are effectively invisible until they launch their bombs. A country with well-armed nuclear submarines can retaliate against a nuclear attack, even if its command is destroyed. Submarines are an essential part of nuclear deterrence and retaliation strategy for Russia, the United States, and the United Kingdom. The launch from a submarine shows the aggression is a genuine nuclear attack. The American president informs the Chief of Strategic Command of a code that allows him to launch any available nuclear attack. And moments after that, 50 ICBMs are launched from American soil towards North Korea. Another 30 bombs will be launched from nuclear submarines near North Korea. In less than half an hour, 82 targets of military, civilian, and industrial importance will be wiped off the map in North Korea. 9 nuclear bombs hit the United States. The American capital is wiped off the map. The Pentagon, the White House, and millions of people no longer exist. A kilometer-long fireball, followed by gusts of wind, level everything for tens of kilometers. Everything flammable around the capital is immediately set on fire. People near the center of the explosion are vaporized. The pulse of electromagnetic energy generated disables the president's helicopter even from miles away. The American capital is replaced by a mushroom cloud, and 8 more mushroom clouds rise on the west coast, targeting the energy production and transmission infrastructure, including nuclear power plants, creating a fire of radioactive material. A fire so radioactive that it is too dangerous to extinguish due to its high levels of radiation. And these 9 nuclear bombs are not the worst news at the moment. There is a major flaw in the American nuclear retaliation system. Currently, almost all viable trajectories for retaliation against potential targets pass over Russia. In other words, if the United States launches a nuclear attack against North Korea, their missiles will cross Russia's airspace. And from Russia's point of view, there are now 50 American ICBMs now heading towards their territory. American diplomats and leaders will try to contact Russia to inform them that the attack is not against them. But should Russia believe it? If Russia is willing to believe that they will be spared from a nuclear attack, this is the perfect scenario to actually launch a decapitating nuclear attack on Russia. If Russia delays its retaliation by trusting the American government, it becomes a sitting duck. This is the apocalyptic logic of nuclear weapons. Any nuclear threat must be immediately and swiftly retaliated with the utmost and maximum power. Choosing not to condemn hundreds of millions of people in the United States to immediate death would be a security failure for Russia. And that is the natural limit of nuclear deterrence: mutual assured destruction. Any nuclear attack from a likely potential rival will generate a retaliation aimed at destroying the rival and all its allied countries. Even the appearance of an American nuclear attack against Russia must be met with maximum force. Any alternative or hesitation is a limitation in Russian nuclear deterrence. A vulnerability. Minutes after 50 American ICBMs are launched, Russia launches over 1,000 nuclear weapons against the United States. Dozens of other nuclear weapons from submarines are also launched against military bases in Europe, Korea, Japan, and any American ally with nuclear weapons. Approximately 30 minutes, just half an hour ago, there was only one nuclear weapon being launched. And now, half an hour later, there are over 1,000 weapons launched, flying towards highly populated regions all across the Northern Hemisphere. In another half hour, cities like Paris, London, Seoul, and much of the United States will be completely wiped off the map by nuclear bombs. And once launched, ICBMs cannot be stopped. The American military command receives information about the Russian launch. The head of the strategic command, armed with the capability to retaliate, boards the doomsday plane. A command center in a completely analog plane immune to the electromagnetic effects of nuclear explosions. Inside this plane, it is possible to command the entire American nuclear arsenal. And the question to be answered is simple and cruel: is it worth retaliating? In the current scenario, it is certain that the United States, as we know it, will end. There is no way to prevent this. The only question that remains is it worth causing more destruction by launching more nuclear weapons against Russia? There is no real advantage at this point in launching or not launching. And yet, the bombs will probably be launched. And the reason is the same as why Russia launched its bombs. If the United States is not willing to retaliate against a full-scale nuclear attack, they are vulnerable to a full-scale nuclear attack. Nuclear logic demands that every bomb be met with all possible power. 1,000 more ICBMs are launched from American soil targeting Russia and its allies. Each ICBM carries approximately 10 megatons of TNT explosive power and multiple independent warheads, which will spread around the target to maximize explosive power. This represents more than 600 times the force of the Hiroshima explosion. All 2,000 ICBMs launched carry the destructive power of more than 1 million Hiroshima-Nagasaki nuclear explosions. It is difficult to comprehend this scale of destruction. Everything happens so quickly that many people who are about to die don't even understand what is happening. Just 1 hour after the launch of the first ICBM, the world as we know it will inevitably end, and there is no way to stop it. 50 minutes. The first nuclear attacks to reach both Russia and the United States are those launched from nuclear submarines. And the first nuclear bombs explode in the atmosphere itself, not on the ground. The purpose of these bombs is to generate electromagnetic pulses capable of frying electrical equipment over vast regions. A 3-megaton bomb exploding in central US would destroy the entire American electrical system. This is because the entire electrical system is interconnected by conductive wires. What's more, any piece of metal near the explosion would become an antenna emitting radio signals, causing interference in the usual radio communication. The EMP attack marks the beginning of total nuclear war. And after the explosion, there is silence. Radios don't work. The power goes out. And within minutes, the bombs fall. 60 minutes. The first nuclear weapons fired from the submarines are meant to destroy key military command sites. The bunkers at Raven Rock, the strategic command centers in Nebraska, and other military installations are destroyed by showers of nuclear bombs. Mountain complexes are attacked by a series of bombs to ensure the destruction of even the most hidden locations. The ICBMs come in succession, with the aim of destroying industrial capacity and any hope of recovery. Industrial capacity is often concentrated in large cities. All the big cities are wiped off the map. Within minutes, the death toll reaches hundreds of millions, nearly 500 million, and the number will likely grow to more than 1 billion in the following days. And no security or rescue force will be in a position to provide any kind of immediate quick assistance. A full-scale nuclear attack will annihilate any trace of a government. It will level both buildings and the political organization of the nation. The infrastructure that allowed countries like Russia, the United States, and England to have national unity will be annihilated. The logic of the apocalypse will come into play. Those who survive will try to stay alive at all costs, likely fleeing inhabited areas to avoid the worst of the radiation. Even if some group still considers itself the American government, they will not have the power to enforce that command. The world as we know it ended in just 1 hour of nuclear war. You just have to accept it. 2 years, a full nuclear exchange will change the world in incomprehensible ways. The nuclear attacks will set fire to most of the forests and nearby cities where the bomb fell, which will emit enough smoke to block sunlight and cool the planet by a few degrees Celsius. Enough to indeed change the agricultural profile of most food producers. Otherwise, producing food will become difficult or impossible for years. Even without being hit by a nuclear bomb, other countries will suffer from the forced climate change. And due to radioactive contamination expected to spread across most of the world. Besides the climate, a full nuclear exchange is likely to decrease soil quality in the northern hemisphere and affect the southern part of the world as well. The least affected countries are expected to include countries like Brazil, Australia, Argentina, and South Africa. And even so, all these countries have important trade ties with the countries of the northern hemisphere, which for all practical purposes no longer exist. It's hard to call the ensuing economic crisis a crisis, as it's nothing compared to the nuclear destruction in Europe, North America, and Asia. The world will be a world in mourning, a civilization in slow collapse, with disorder taking hold in the most populous regions of the planet. And behind the immediate pain caused by the firing of more than 2,000 nuclear weapons, follows an even more cruel question. There are still another 10,000 nuclear weapons that were not used because there wasn't enough time. And this nuclear power is extremely valuable in a world capable of nuclear war. Perhaps independent groups from the destroyed nations will try to seize them to regain power. Perhaps the least affected countries will try to acquire these weapons themselves to protect against a new nuclear arms race. In a world where it is clear that nuclear war has already happened, what guarantees that the world won't do it all over again? I would like to know what you think. Do you think the scenario I presented in the video realistic? Type here in the comments. Thank you very much, and see you next time.